Hi everyone, we are very excited to have you here today for the second episode of our Space in Southeast Asia webinar, organized by the Space Generation Advisory Council, also known as SGAC. For those new to SGAC, we are a global network of university students and young professionals in the space sector with over 15,000 members from 168 countries. The purpose of SGAC is to give youth opportunities and a voice in global space policy through professional development, project groups, scholarships, events, and activities related to the United Nations. The Space in Southeast Asia series, or SpiSEA, is one such event started by SGAC members in the region. So today we have an exciting lineup of speakers to discuss space education for youth and the ongoing activities to harness this interest. Before we begin the panel discussion, we sent out a short survey to those who registered for the event, and we would like to share the results to give a quick overview of what our attendees think about space education in Southeast Asia. So thank you everyone who filled in the survey. 50% of those who participated were 18 to 24 years of age, and more than close to 90% were from Southeast Asia countries, including Cambodia, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, as well as Vietnam. Participants were most interested in space exploration and space safety at 75%, followed by small satellites and space environmental sustainability at 60% each. Yeah, and 80% answered that the reasons for their interest in space education are to learn science, tech, engineering, and math subjects using space, as well as to pursue future opportunities. When asked to rate how effective is their high school curriculum in teaching space education on a scale of 1 to 10, 20% gave a rating of 6, which is in the mid-range of effectiveness. So now I'll pass off the time to Harley, who will be moderating the panel. If you have any questions during the discussion, please feel free to just put it in the chat box. Harley, on to you.
Thanks, Faith. Greetings to everyone who's here. We're glad that you're joining us at this hour, afternoon, evening, or whatever it is in your home country. I want to know if all the speakers are on the table right now. I think.
Yes, we're on, but we can't start the video.
Yeah, I think we'll wait for a bit for our colleagues to pin you over to the main stage, virtual stage. Jillian, we're pinning speakers onto the spotlight, right?
Sorry, can you turn on your camera so that I can spotlight you?
Oh, okay. So we're suggesting all the speakers to turn on their camera so Jillian can spotlight you. So Anne, Lynette, Hafez, and Dr. Gear is, if he's here. There we go. I was all alone on the stage and I'm like, okay.
Well, I cannot start because the host stopped it. So the host stopped me. I can't start my video.
It's not, you can do it now. They've unlocked it. Supposed to ask you a question.
Oh, but I'm gone. Okay, here.
There we go. Cool. So yeah. Let's wait for Dr. Gear's not yet in, right? Okay, so I think one speaker will be joining us in a few bit. But I guess we can already start the discussion, get the ball rolling, and then heat up the the exchange of ideas. So yeah, so today's topic would be all about space education, as Faith mentioned a while ago during the introduction. And it would be nice to hear from our good speakers on the table right now, Hafez, Ann, and Lynette, on what their journey has been with regards to space education in Southeast Asia. So yeah, so the first question, I guess, would be, this is for everyone on the table. I guess we can start with Hafez, and then Anne, and then Lynette. So I want to know what you guys, what made you guys end up in this career, or what sort of like sparked your interest with space education or astronomy, education in space or astronomy. So yeah.
All right, so I start first. Okay, assalamualaikum and very good afternoon, I think. Okay, so my name is Hafez Murta. I'm a founder of Apadilangit, also known as Universe Awareness Malaysia. We are a space education program. We conduct a lot of space camp activities, do a lot of outreach project through all spectrum, then for the normal one and also for the inclusive community as well. So go back to the question just now. What are the spark? What are the fires that bring me to the space education? It's from my interest to share with my friends and my community about space, and the intention to bring the community together to bring up Malaysian space activities, and the main mission is to grow the Malaysia space industries. So it should start from education. It must start from education. So the crucial part is to provide our kids, our community, with the best education about astronomy, space technology, and to combine and to link them together with a good ecosystem where everybody can contribute toward nation interest in space. That's what very important, that we participate and involve in space education in Malaysia. And nothing more that important than to bring to make our community, our children interested with space and think that they can do the same as what they saw from the Western country or advanced nation. They believe that we can do that. That's very important. So I think that's how we do it. Try to gather students, kids that interested and enthusiastic in space, and guide them towards our national space. I think we have our own vision for that. Okay, that's all. First from Malaysia, we go to Indonesia. We end and on something from her side.
Or Lynette first.
Thank you. Thanks, Anne. Thanks. It's really exciting, to hear what Hafez had to say. So we are also interested in the space education, simply because it is a very exciting and fascinating field. And I think many of you would agree, for us in Southeast Asia, a lot of times it means we have to travel to the Western countries like the US, Russia, Europe, to pursue that kind of education. And unless there is that kind of platform at the intermediary level, sometimes it's very daunting and very steep. Like, while when I was studying in the US for 4 years, it was like there were launch sites, and NASA had activities, Space Foundation had activities. It was very easy to find out information and to know about the industry. But coming back in Singapore, it was quite challenging. We have to talk to people overseas, and it has to be from a different time zone. So very similar to Hafez, we started, the interest has always been there, but we started it so that we can raise the awareness and get more people interested in this. So one of the things we did was to create an international space challenge, which Jillian actually coordinates a lot of it. and we always try to have like crazy ideas, and we're sponsoring a grand prize of $10,000, and it's from anyone from 13 years old to 25 years old. And if they don't have an experience in the space industry, or they are very afraid, they can join the starter beginner sector category, which is from 13 to 18 years old. And then we teach you things like, report writing, understanding sciences, in the competition. So it's not really a competition, it's actually a learning journey for all of us. And I really want to let all of you know that we could sign up for it. The registration closes in 2 or 3 weeks, and then if we do charge a fee of what, $40 US, but if you have problems signing up because of the fee, right, but you're very committed, drop me an email. We'll be happy to look into it. But really, we want all of us to have this shared learning experience together. And I know SGAC does a lot of policy, space law, regulation, and it's a very good platform. So I was also hoping some of you could be interested in the science and technology part of it, and look at the International Space Challenge. I'll just ping it onto the chat later so you guys could check it out. But like I said, we try to make it very easy. We try to make it very accessible. At least we're all in the same time zone, right, Harley? Like Anne and Hafez, we're all in the same time zone. We can talk to each other. We can coordinate webinars and seminars, and we can try to build a collective journey together. And I think I'm really, really excited about that. Back 15 years ago when we started, we were a little bit alone. But now we're so happy that all these things that are happening with SGAC in Asia, that we can take part in. And then, like Anne and I also exchange texts, right? Hey, what are we going to do for World Space Week? What are we going to do for this? So I really like this fraternity that we're building, and it's really great. And Anne and I were just commenting how dinosauric and prehistoric we might be over LinkedIn. Yeah, because all of you are such bright young talent, and I think you participating in the SGAC activities or activities by any one of us is really such great motivation for all of us. So thank you. I'll hand it back now to Anne.
So of course, thank you. My name is, thank you SGAC for inviting for today, space education. It's a interesting but also heavy topic for me in Indonesia. At the Lynette has done it and Hafez has done it more previously than I am. But for me, I mean, the interest in space for Indonesia has always been there, but largely for astronomy. And I think I only been observing in the past 2 years what sort of structure of education as well that fits the market here, right? Because there's a lot of online community space enthusiasts, and then there's also the students that's actually like, in fact, today I just received an email from a student that's asking help to sponsor like a rocket rocket technology proposal for one of his finals and those kind of stuff. But what I'm interested in is more on grounding space, as in educating the general public who is not even a space enthusiast, and trying to acquire the larger extended market that is not engineers, that is not of a STEM background, and actually more in the popular sense or more in the commercial sense, and actually translating to them what is space industry, or what is the progress of actually our existing human evolution to the future, which is towards a spacefaring civilization. And that is quite difficult to do, especially to educate. And right now, the most important is to address the principals, the teachers, the university lecturers, and the rectors, because a lot of them also think that like it's irrelevant. And the broader general public, it's more of like they are, some of them are enthusiastic about space, but they don't see the relevancy, and so it's not important to support, and it's not important to even consider, because we're still talking about COVID, we're still talking about poverty, and all the basic shelter stuff, right? but actually that doesn't mean that that like the entire population of Indonesia is in that bracket. There's a very small percentage, of course, but it's growing, that's already there, and they don't have a portal, they don't have a door, they don't have like you know, for those kids or students and public who want to learn more, and this is also learning beyond rocketry, learning beyond space technology. That's where I try to open the bigger vision of like there is other branches in space that everybody can join into, and that's where my focus on education at the moment is to introduce, let's say, space food, space medicine, space biology, even creative designers, you know, about spacesuits, and just bringing just more of inclusivity for the general public. So it's not going to, for the very start, the education part from our end is very basic. If not, it's almost non-technical, because we're still trying to explain to the larger community, the great public, why space is important for our everyday lives.
Cool. I feel like there's a lot of points that you've made out based on what you're doing with your current initiatives now that will be revolving around throughout the entire discussion. But one thing that Hafez mentioned while he was explaining what he was doing was the concept, which also Anne mentioned a while ago, is the concept of inclusive education, right? I want to know what Hafez, what are you currently doing that you feel like the most effective way for educating teenagers and taking into account that very core concept of inclusivity? What exactly are you, how are you doing it, essentially, that inclusivity part?
All right. Okay. The inclusivity part and how what is the best approach to educate our communities about space. I think the best way is to leverage on the phenomena or space activities that currently actively happening around the globe. That is the best, I can say, like a gateway to get people interested with space. So recently we have Richard Branson and also Jeff Bezos and all the astro-tourism part, and SpaceX is actually inspiring people to go into space. So we can take that as a leverage educational tools to bring and to spark interest to our kids and also community with space. And from there, it can be snowballing to things as well. So for the inclusive, I think the different is how we approach them, because they are totally different in the term of how to educate. The pedagogy is different, even the resources also different. So we need to craft and create the new things for the inclusive group. That is for the inclusive in terms of the disabilities. For gender and equity, will be totally almost same like normal people, but to bring them more gender in the area where men in this I think industry much more. Yeah, that's the best approach that I can say to leverage on the phenomena, space phenomena, astronomy phenomena that happen and occurs around in a year to catch the interest for kids. I know we have a lot of syllabus or guides and also resources in the internet where teachers and also the outreach people can do and start teaching directly to the participants or the kids. But then the most interested part is, I think everybody will agree with me, is to look at the sky and to look and watch the real rocket launching. That's what we saw in our data that we have. Two basic things that we find out is when we have astronomy phenomena and we do like online watch on like a lunar eclipse or solar eclipse or conjunction. And also for the rocket launch, we admit that we have numbers of participants who are joining us. And the best part is we use our own mother tongue. So it's very close for them to understand. They can simply ask, they can, explore together with us. So I think that is the best way, even though we have a lot of thousands of resources in the internet right now.
True.
All right.
Thank you for As I understand it, inclusivity has can be approached from different perspectives in a sense, aside from gender, aside from skill sets, and aside from resources. So yeah, I understand as well that you have to make it a little bit more relatable in the not just relatable, but also easy to understand, as you've mentioned, the use of mother tongue. That's really cool to know as well. So for space educators out there, take that to heart, I guess. Yeah, and in relation to how you mentioned about paralleling the global space activities into something that in your home country can relate to, I want to know more about Lynette's international space challenge competition, because you mentioned a while ago that you had this observation of the lack of local opportunities, and that's why a lot of the people are going abroad for that. So what do you think would be, or based on your experience with how you've been doing International Space Challenge, how do you think we should address that lack of opportunity? Any other suggestions in a sense? Yeah.
I think what SPSE is doing to, such as the activity today is really good, right? So when you log in, you see, wow, there's like almost 100 of us. I think emotionally we feel less alone. I think all of us do struggle, and many of us would, like many of you, would be bright young students. So there's a lot of pressure of you guys to get a more mainstream career. Don't go blow up some rockets. Maybe go and make some medicine and be a lawyer. Be a businessman. I think there's a lot of pressure on young people, because I was young quite a while ago. I still remember, to be more mainstream, right? But if you're like, yeah, I'm building a rocket, and then your parents and your relatives look at you and like wonder, are you going to have a future? Because for many of us, the space programs are not very big. So I think there's that emotional camaraderie that platforms such as SGAC is, and that's what International Space Challenge is also about. We're not so hung up about what is your submission. We just want you to submit something. And actually, a lot of times we have these webinars, and it's for us to impart knowledge to you. We want to introduce experts to you. We want to make sure you have a lesson on very like AI, and then all the way down to like, what is the science experiment? What is a space station? So a whole spectrum of it. So there is that technology learning at a time zone, with all of us to learn together. And then I think for the more ambitious one, right, then we also make sure that we cater to their needs by having, very experienced type of experts and judges. So they tend to be like very senior people from all over the world, and they could go on to get internships with them. In fact, locally in Singapore, one of the major sponsors is DSO National Laboratories and the IMDA, right? And we know a lot of our students have graduated because we've been around for so long. They've from young kids, they've graduated, grown up, got like a master's degree in aeronautical engineering, and they've come back to work for some of these sponsors, right? So that's really amazing. So there is a career pathway for them. And, in the meantime, they win a grand prize of $10,000. So some of them take that money to start their own company. Some of them take that experience to say, I've done this with the International Space Challenge, and I'm going to start my own company, and that helps them with their credentials, which this is what we're trying to create to help. So providing that emotional support, giving the technology support, and for the very ambitious one that really carries it through, we want to give you also support to start in your new space entrepreneurship, your new space endeavor in your career, and give you money to get started. So that's how we're doing it, and we're really happy. We have participants from New Zealand, from Mexico, from Costa Rica, and we decided to drop the name Singapore and call it international, because we didn't want people to think this is like a Singapore type of activity. Rather, it's what we're trying to do here, right? That fraternity, regardless of country, regardless of nationality. But for some of us who might not be so lucky to be living next to NASA or ESA, maybe that's something we can all do together. Yeah. Thanks for the question, Holly.
I like your answer about the existence of the community, and I relate so much because that's what got me going with SJAC, the very concept of community. And I personally feel like um, being a part of this community allows you to work with. I had a chance to work with a highly technical project, even though in the Philippines in itself, I never had that chance. But because of this concept of community, I was able to collaborate to other people designing a Mars city, which is like, how can I do that if I never had that community that you mentioned about? So yeah, really, really good. So I want to go back to Anne because she mentioned what she's doing and the considerations of the concept of skills and how she's going around that idea. So you mentioned that it's not just about enriching technical skills. You mentioned non-technical aspects as well, and also going into these non-mainstream parts of space. But I want to know your opinion. What do you think are the primary skills or sort of like most prioritized skill set for space education, at least for early career professionals or young students who want to get into space? Yeah.
They have to be curious and they have to be persistent because again, space is difficult, especially if you want to pursue the technical part. Yeah, I guess Lynette would agree. They have to study very hard, get their PhD, you know, and maybe postdoc as well, and get as many internships. So I think it's more of I think towards this end, it's more of the soft skills. Instead of course you have to work hard, that's like basic, but it's more of the soft skills. And also sometimes the way I see it from my experience as well is also like, are you achieving this because of your ego driven, or is it because you want to make a change, or you know, you want to progress humanity for it to become better, you know? So that's skills, technical skills, or even the soft skills are all, I think, important in pursuing this path, because we're talking about space as an evolution of human civilization, not just individual progress, right? So that's my take on that. Because just from my experience, I've interviewed a lot of like a few interns. They can answer everything perfectly, perfect English. I answer, you know, I asked them about Mars. I asked them about the moon, technically sound. But when I had a problem, and it was, of course, that person's mistake, he disappeared. So, and we couldn't contact the person, you know. So I don't know what skill is that under responsible, or you know. So
crisis management.
of course, everything you can't do that once you're in Mars. If you know, and like, and the application, he wanted to be head or something in Mars. I was like, you can't do that, and that's a very minor part. And space again is talking about cooperation. Multi-country cooperation. So it's all about the soft skills. It's no longer about technical, because you can pull out any kind of talents from all around the world. You know, you have many brilliant talents, but if you don't have the soft skills to be able to be tolerant and cooperate with one another, then you will never go too far.
Yeah. I see that there's like something, in a sense, you mentioned that anything small can be blown up when we talk about space. Like a small mistake could impact a really huge cooperative framework when we talk about space. But yeah, I want to go around the table, same thing on the skills, since Anne mentioned the importance of soft skills. This is a tricky question, but I want to know what's your answer. If I ask you of one particular skill that you feel like students who want to get into space should develop really well, what would it be? Let's go with Lynette and then Hafez.
My daughter just came in.
Hi.
Yeah. No, I adopted Yoda, the baby Yoda. So you're out of the picture. Sorry. It's a lot cuter than me.
Okay, then
What's her
I'll
name?
No, don't delete the background. I want the other one. I want the one with the big ear. Sorry, you were asking Holly.
Yeah, so if there's like one particular skill that you want to iterate or highlight that people who want to get into space should focus on or develop really, really well, what would it be?
Yeah, I was thinking about actually, it's something that's very important in this industry. I don't feel there is a lack of it, but I just want to highlight and bring it out, right? And which is to be able to integrate information and ideas, but also more importantly in having to persevere. And so for example, SpaceX took 11 years, right, for their reusable rocket booster to get land a nice contract with NASA. 11 years. And even Jeff Bezos with the White Knight, 1, 2, and with the skilled composites development, that was not 12 months or 18 months. It was many, many, many years. I think that kids grew up, with the parents like Sam Branson, right? I think they were having some sharing session, and they grew up with that. The father, wanting to do this, and it was many, many, many years. So I think having grit, being able to persevere, is very, very important. The good thing is, from my experience with so many of these enthusiasts, they have it. We all have it, right? We keep going and we keep going and we keep going. There's COVID, natural things happening, but we just keep going. And I see so much of it, which is why I'm very optimistic about what we can all do together. Yeah. Thanks.
Really cool. Really good point. Because I think the latest one, and not the latest one, but the one about Virgin Galactic, I think took them 2 decades to design, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not sure, but yeah, good point on that. But yeah, how about you, Hafez? What do you think?
All right. So when we talk about space, everybody would think about rocket, astronomy. But at the end of the day, space is for everyone. From where you are, and whether in the art stream or science stream, space is for everyone. So we need to understand what can everybody contribute towards space. The most important part I can say is, I cannot say it is skills, but this is essential part, the passion and the drive and the curiosity to go, to explore, and then to develop, and also to bring people together in. I think there's not one word that I can conclude. I think the passionate and also the curiosity that will bring you up further, and you will explore more, and then you can bring people together. Because we need to understand, space is not exclusive for those who have, all the resources with them. Where you are, either from the village or from the, out circuit area or in the town area, if you have passion, we need to look space as a ecosystem. Because we know, if I say STEM is the most important part, we cannot neglect those who are in the lawyer. I can say, like, we need space lawyer, right? And we also need a fashion designer for our spacesuit. We need a plumber if you want to have like a moon colony in moon. So we need everybody, actually. So it is important for us to have the curiosity and to explore, and also to bring it up into the next level. So this is what we need to understand. So everybody here that are listening us, everybody have a chance to participate and contribute towards space. So either you are in the mainstream, I can say in the science education or arts education, everybody play a big role. That's what I see. And if you're really interested to participate, if you are not in space and you're interested in astronomy, you can be, we have a mature astronomer, help people to discover something, go and do outreach. It's also a contribution to the nation as well. So yeah, the patient play a big role.
Well, I have to answer, patience is a skill. You said you're not sure if it's a skill, but I believe it's a skill because not a lot of people have that. Yeah. And I also like the concept of curiosity as one of the things that you've highlighted, because I just had this discussion with a friend, and he was like mentioning, what is the sense of going to Mars what if we find out that it's not a good place for us? Why would we even bother going there? And I'm like, that's like very counter to the very concept of human exploration. We don't care if it's safe or unsafe. We want to explore things. So curiosity is like a big thing. And you ended up with the how space is inviting to all sorts of professionals. So I want to know what Anne's opinion would be on how do you think early or mid-career professionals could shift into the space industry? What are the opportunities available in your home country or you'd like to get developed in the Southeast Asian region, for example, for mid-shift or early or mid-career shifters into space? Yeah. Yeah. And
Okay, Lynette.
Oh,
sure, let's go with Lynette first.
Well,
this is for everyone, by the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it is for everyone. I think one of the things to get into the skill that get into it is it, like like Hafez was saying, right? You have space lawyers. That there are really many different types of things everyone is looking out for. So what kind? I think being open-minded maybe one of those things that we could all do a little bit with to get started and get into the industry. Just trying new things and being very humble about it might be good. So, and then maybe in terms of skill, right? Of course, if you want to do science, technology, and engineering, it really helps to be good with physics and math. To get you in there. And then if you're going to be a lawyer, then obviously linguistic capabilities, comprehension capabilities are important. So I don't want to undermine the basic skills. And then there is that attitude, right? So in many countries also getting into the space sector is very, very competitive. So I'm just going to assume all of us are going to be like really good at that. And then if not, then I think this is really great motivation to do your homework and study hard and do your parents proud. And then layering on top of that, being open-minded and being very humble to try things, because you sometimes literally deal with rocket science and rocket scientists. It is very important. I hope that's helpful. So yeah, you do have to study hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think sorry if I might add as well. I mean, learning even at this stage, we still learning. Everybody have to learn every day, even at the executive level. There's always, and like I've worked in many different kind of industry before, infrastructure, environment, whatever. Space is the only one that is the only thing that like I have to read every day. Otherwise, I don't know anything. You have to keep on reading, and you have to know more. You have to know more what this company is doing what, and if you're in the scientific or the technology part, you gotta be updated with all of the journals, you gotta read all the papers. But I think also the crucial sector that's easier for mid transitioning career or early, I think mid or even senior, they like space since very young, but they're already in oil and gas, very comfortable, but they don't have the guts to transition. I think it's also easiest to transition to the management side of the business instead of the technical, because if you don't have the degree and the technical degree for space technology, then it's quite tough to catch up, right? But it's easier for you to let's say take a course, the executive course at International Space University, or you take a master's degree, you take all of the online courses and you read a lot. And the space industry need more communicators now. They need people to run the business, and it's helpful to have that technical background. But at the same time, it's also easier to get employment on the business side of space industry instead of the technical parts.
Good point.
Maybe I can add something. Maybe I can add something about that. Talking about, because we are talking about transition, right? When people want to, from the mid-career want to go into space industries, and I think in the era where we have a lot of information, we are flooded by information. People, most of us are distracted because of the information. I think the important essence is we need to know what we want to achieve in our life. If you want to go into space, in what area, in which area, and then you pursue it, you go deeper, learn about it. I think currently, if you look at the situation right now, Elon Musk is not from the space engineer, right? He's not from that area. Jeff Bezos, you can look at it. Even Richard Branson, It starts from the Virgin
No,
Music,
Jeff
right?
Bezos studied physics. Jeff
Yeah, it
Bezos
studies
studied
physics.
physics. Eh?
Yeah,
Yeah.
he studies physics, but it's not coming from the background of space. Yeah, so it's not from the real space industry. So we need to understand, everybody, if you have the passion, you can go for it, no matter who you are or what age you are. I mean, it it's open for me. I think that's important. It goes back to the passion, it goes back to the drive and focus about what you want to achieve. We don't have lack of information right now. We only lack of focus.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. I also have like stories when Anne mentioned the concept of communicators. That was a really relatable story because a lot of the people I know who shifted into space related careers started as writers for non-space, totally not space related stuff. And then when they heard about, in the Philippines at least, the formation of the Philippine Space Agency, they were in need of communicators, and now they're in that agency working as communicators. So yeah, definitely very important. Communicators, writers, creatives, they come up with these really brilliant ideas on how to go about space in a publicly understand, like in an easy understandable way, so that the public can relate to it and easily absorb it. So yeah, good points on this one. I guess the last question for everyone on this table is kind of like a heavy question, which is like, well, not really heavy, but I want to know, what do you think are the misconceptions? Let's start with Lynette. What are the misconceptions about space education from your experience in your country, or yeah, what do you think about
Yeah, people
the
tend to
misconceptions?
think that, really nice question. People tend to think that space education is always about rockets, right? The first thing they go is, oh, I want to be a rocket. But that only,
cool.
that is, right? Yeah. Or
Yes.
like, I want to be an astronaut. Is rocket an astronaut? Although yesterday I had a session with young people from about 15 to 25 years old, and we were talking about some space projects we want to do together. And I gave them reading material. Okay, I gave them like quite like a page long of links for them to go read before we come, and none of them spoke about rockets and astronauts. So that's something education can do. I think if you give them enough information, they will know the space industry worth 400 over US billion dollars, of which less than 5% is about rocket launches. They would know a lot more about an industry, and then they will talk about rockets. So I think that's a huge misconception about the space industry. It is not only about rockets. It's a lot about communication, satellite, even regulatory, space law, policy. That there's a lot of aspect of that, insurance even, right? So I think that thanks for asking me. I think I got an easy one. So yeah, rockets, astronauts. That's like the space industry.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So good luck,
Good
yeah, Hafez and Anne.
So yeah, Anne, what are your experiences about these misconceptions? What have you heard of?
Well, it's irrelevant, and it's not. What's the point? And there's just, again, it's because they're not understanding. There's not enough understanding, and there's not enough advocacy on the relevancy of space in our everyday life. So hence, we try to campaign the first year of the online education is, space for everyday life, and really bring it down to the popular culture, which is music, and then food, and curious topic about asteroid mining, because we are a mining, we are a natural resources rich country, right? We just go to our backyard and we have everything. Why do we need to go to space? So but that is, like that irrelevancy becomes becomes an understanding that, oh, okay, it's actually relevant to our everyday lives. And the hardest to convince is, of course, the parents, because when we're investing in the future generation, you got to convince you have to convince the parents first, right? So it's not so much convincing the kids, but it's educating the parents as well. And it's yeah, I think it's more of like we're still in the thinking about eliminating poverty, sanitation. Why do we have to care about going to space? So the big chunk of the homework is grounding space and telling, and teaching them that, okay, all of these technology actually come from the International Space Station. It's the commercialization of space technology and so on and so forth. So again, that requires a lot of communicating and outreach and to make people understand. But I think the key is also, if they're not interested, they just don't want to accept any explanation. It will come as an argument. So that's where the diplomacy comes in.
Yeah, good point. I think the education of the public is like one of the hardest to put out there in this context, because a lot of the people have a misaligned what they call this expectation with what is space and what space really is. People think a lot that it's always looking up. They never think that what we put up there can also look down on us and then like help us. So yeah, really, it's important as well. I think that the public is not fully educated, but well educated in a sense, because when we talk about space policies being pushed forward, it's really difficult to push for a space policy if the public doesn't support it or doesn't feel like it's relevant, like you've said. So yeah, what about you, Hafez? What's your experience about misconceptions on space education?
Thank you. I think we face the same thing. I mean, people think about space. When people talk about space, they think about, I think normally for parents, they will ask about the career, right? I mean, that's a big issue. I mean, here, okay, for study in space, so what are you gonna be? We don't have that such industry in Malaysia. So they don't have the real path to be what they want to. But we need, as a communicator, it's how the role that we need to play. We need to make people understand that space is for human benefit. What goes up must come back. We send things to space. It's not just, I mean, we know we do explore, it's for the humanity. We need, because our curiosity to know. But then all the satellites that are up there is to benefit humans. So we need to bring them to the next level. All the things that we use right now in our communication, we use satellite, and even for the navigation and agriculture, a lot of things that can be explored. So the important part is, even though they are not directly in space, I mean in industry or learning about aerospace or something, maybe they go into programming, but then they can program something for space benefit. At the end of the day, come back to Earth. It relates right now with the AI that we have, the IoT, everything. So space must bring something back to Earth. If not, we are just, I mean, like, I don't want to say wasting money, but even though we are going to Mars, we want to learn something, the investment is there, but that is for future generation. But what's happening right now, people want, I mean, easy and fast, I mean, investment return, right? That's a big thing, but that's the real case right now. So what they can do is go with what they want, but then the theme after that will be space in any ways. If you want to see it, like if you're an artist, you want to draw something to space, then you can make money. Economic value is there. How you make value in economic and space team is very important. So then we can see the space team can be spread out to the nation. People can think that, oh, space not just about sending rockets, not just about astronomy, not just about, I mean, exploring something, but everything, every device that we have, the technology that we use is related to space. Is that very, very important? And we need to understand that space, because I think the challenge.
I think Hafez froze. Or is it just me? Hafez, you still there? All right, yeah. So I feel like while we're waiting for Hafez to come back, we can already open the questions to the floor. But I just want to make a comment when he mentioned the concept of investment, because a lot of the people you talk to about when it comes to the ROI of space is that they think, how long do we get back the ROI? And that just brought to mind that aside from educating the public, I think some countries that are pushing forward for space policies would also have this role of educating the politicians, the policymakers, because most of them, they have, again, the misaligned expectation about what they can get from space. And that would be very, very important. So yeah, I see there are a lot of really good questions from the floor. So let's go through them. I'm not going to throw it to a particular person, but if you feel like you would want to jump into the discussion, feel free to do so. So one of the questions from the audience, hi Hafez, you're back. yeah. We just talked about your point on investment. So yeah, thank you for sharing your insights on that. I see Marco turned on his camera. Is there anything you'd want us to know? Okay.
Alrighty, thanks. A lot of very interesting highlighted. You're right, we've compiled a very good list of questions from the floor, and I thought I'd start with the one from the Scottish Development International. The question reads, to panelists in each of your own countries, do you feel the Ministry of Education is supporting STEM-based education enough in the tertiary education? And how do you think these ministries of education should articulate space to instill that in students?
For Indonesia, I did education back in 2014 with Ministry of Education, but that is on pedagogy. So that's on teacher training. At the moment, they have different priorities, I guess. But at some point we will approach the minister, and hopefully, because his first startup relies on space technology, he will support. But on STEM, yes, but the bottleneck again is on teachers training.
Yep.
Especially during the COVID times, because everything is online, and even the teachers in the remote areas, they don't know how to. They're not in the capacity to teach the STEM models. They themselves don't understand fully, and they have converted the teaching to television. So you tune in, like Sesame Street back in the days, you tune in 10 o'clock, there's somebody, and it's going back to prehistoric time. So yeah, still quite far to go, but the key investment is in pedagogy and teachers training for STEM especially.
Yeah.
Easier with private international schools.
Yeah, correct. So Marco, the Ministry of Education in Singapore, from what I understand, they do support the space education program at the university level. Similar to what Anne mentioned, right, and what Hafez was saying also. There is a lot of competing resources. We also need to train doctors. We don't have many people in Singapore. So I think they are also very cautious with whether you over promote and it doesn't have enough jobs, or you steal talent away from other critical industries. So that they are not against, they're not doing anything to inhibit, and they are just allocating the resources suitably. So in two of the four main universities in Singapore, they do have satellite programs, and I think some of you guys are familiar with them. So I think they're just being very balanced in the Ministry of Education, because they look after everyone.
Okay, so Malaysia, I think for Malaysia, we have our National STEM Center. So the National STEM Center work closely with us, and they are very supporting. And also we have numbers of teachers associations and also NGOs who are into STEM. So currently, what actually happening is when they want to bring STEM, they want to have the theme right? So the best thing that we find out that kids are interested to jump in and learn is about space, because space is always be a gateway for them. Can you imagine the poster of STEM normally will have a rocket, astronaut, or something like that, right? To make kids interested, because they other in the STEM are the applications in the space. So space will be the main theme, and then technology, engineering, mathematics will be fit in with the space team. So to attract the kids, parents, they normally will use space-related theme to vision that space is is something that advanced technologically. So that's how we do it here. Even though we have robotics, and we can link it back, make it a theme how the robotic works in space, with the challenges that they have in space, or in Mars, even in the moon. So that's how it's happening here, and we have a good support. And the important part is, even though we have a STEM education right now, as what Lynette mentioned just now, is the NGOs and also the industry to come in together, because we don't want to push everybody learn about STEM. At the end of the day, they don't know where to go. Even though world are global right now, but we want to have our own, intellectual capital here. The skills and experts to develop our nation and space industries. So that's why we have like Malaysia Space Initiatives come in together to become a hub to connect the universities, the STEM players, the agencies, space agencies, the planetarium, how these kids, those coming out from the STEM education, to further studies and to help the industry grow. That's what we need to do now. If not, we just, become like a one-off awareness campaign, go and do outreach, communicate to the public, but then they don't know where to go. So the ecosystem must come in. That's how MISI come in. So because I'm playing a role as a MISI president right now. So that's what we are doing right now, to connect all the dots, how the students from the STEM education and then coming into the industries. And together we help the agencies with the regulations and others. So we know how to move our national space exploration agenda. By the way, Malaysia have just announced our Malaysia Space Agenda, Malaysia Space Exploration 2030. So we have aims and vision. So it's important everybody, the communicators, the players, industry, understand what we want to achieve at the end of the day within almost about 8 years from now. So we need to sit together, and I think we can do that if we collaborate, and we can show that we can achieve the vision.
Thank you. Those are terrific answers. Before moving on to the next question, I just wanted to note that Dr. Padiwat unfortunately couldn't join us because he is unwell, and we're wishing him a speedy recovery.
Marco? Okay.
The connection is returned. Question number 2 from Florence Pauline in the Philippines. The question goes, how do you ensure that minorities and underprivileged get equal access to space education? 2, and to get to pursue a career in space, since you have shared it as a pretty expensive endeavor, not just financially, but also emotionally and mentally. Did you receive that? There's some spotty connection.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did hear it.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I did. Okay, so then I want to answer it. About the inclusive. Right?
Go first.
And you want to start?
No, you can go first.
Okay. All right. Thank you. The inclusive. Everybody. As I mentioned just now. I think I start with the inclusive agenda and space for everybody. We understand that space is not just about rocket. It's also about astronomy. So to make sure that everybody have an equal access to the space is to create or to develop good resources. So that's how I think SGAC play a big role, and International Astronomical Union, the big agency in the United Nations, play a big role to connect and to share the resources about the inclusivity space activities for these communities. So for those who are in the inclusive community, I mean, currently a lot of resources that being shared by the IAU. Now I'm wearing an IAU cap, okay, because I work closely with them for the inclusive agenda. So we can see that for those who are blind, we have like personification devices that help them to know about light. And we have numbers of astronomers who are blind and they discover also galaxies and others as well. So they can go into a professional career. You can see that. I mean, even you are blind. I mean, normally we talk about space, we talk about beautiful night sky, we talk about visual senses. Then even for the other disabilities as well, I think this agenda is quite big and been discussed in international platform. And we have a lot of resources. What we need to do is connect and go to the community that been provided by the international community. So in certain countries, I understand that we don't have, I mean, certain communicators that can help into the inclusive, but you can go to the international level, a lot of resources being shared and expertise on that. I think we can learn about to help people on this area. Okay, anyone to share?
Well, I think, I think Faith also in the group chat reiterated, right? How do we ensure minorities and underprivileged get equal access to space education? It is a pretty expensive endeavor, financially, emotionally, mentally. And certainly, I think the first step is in the awareness, which is why when I said about the International Space Challenge, there is a registration fee. It's not expensive. But, when we are conscious to make it known that if you have problems paying, but you're very dedicated and you really want to be part of the challenge, we do waive the registration fee. Right, we just didn't want to open a floodgate for everyone, but we're very deliberate, reaching out to underprivileged minorities, and that's the same for a lot of the things that we do in SSTL. We do make a very conscious effort to reach out to them and tell them, don't worry about this. And the part about being mentally, exhausting, even for some groups, right, where we are, again, because we are aware of it, we are conscious of it, we create action plans for it, and then we actually set aside resources, manpower resources, to tell them, we have mentors for you. We know you're going to find this really difficult, but we have a mentor for you. They can talk to you, once every 2 weeks, because their time is also precious. I mean, the participants' time is also precious, but we have mentors for you. So we do go very out of the way to reach out to the minority, the underprivileged. Of course, I don't want to claim we are doing everything. There are groups that we do miss out. There are groups that fall off the crack, but there is an intention, a desire to be aware, find the right solution for it, and then setting up for us resources to act on it, and then learning as we go along, and being very humble that we're not going to solve everyone's problems, but we are certainly trying our best, and we're also a non-profit, so with the limited resources we have, we're really doing our best to do that. So again, it's really part of what we do in our business, and in every day. You just have to plan for it and put the energy behind it and do it.
Okay, can you repeat the question again? It's so lengthy explanation that I forgot the but like inclusivity, is it?
Yeah.
I'll compress it if it helps. And how do you ensure minorities and the underprivileged get equal access to space when it comes to the financial, mental, and emotional aspects?
Great, we have 300 million people here for that. So we are trying a new pilot project that we're trying as well, and this idea also came from internationally, space education for indigenous community. As you know, Indonesia is a country of 33 provinces full of, like indigenous community everywhere. And luckily for me, a good friend of mine has a foundation that has works in almost all of the indigenous community and villages across Indonesia. And there's this one place, it's called Wairebo village, which is like a UNESCO heritage. And of course, we want to do something there because you can see the Milky Way there quite well in some seasons. So we want to put a mini telescope there and mini observatory, and that will be the pilot project. And we have good access to regional government. And so the strategy now is you convince and you do a pilot there and you convince the one regional government, especially for Eastern Indonesia, where a lot of the minorities and the underprivileged communities there, which are, sometimes they don't even have universities or schools there. They have to go to Java to even go to school, And so we try to bring the education there instead. First of all, to make them better guides, astrotourism guides from whichever village they are. And then secondly, hopefully they're inspired enough to pursue further education in university. We will try to support them with the scholarship or even, like to Indonesian school, Indonesian university, Indonesian schools or internationally. So that's at least one initiative for inclusivity, underprivileged communities and students in Indonesia at the moment that we are preparing right now. And I mean, funding is always a challenge for everybody, even for us that actually runs the organization. Let alone we also really want to empower the students to become part of it, right? And it's still a very difficult business model to make this work, except for grants, and that's why I think it becomes more important for the space education awareness, and why it's important, because so then we have the bigger foundations to allocate funding for these for space education, for sure, for instance.
Thank you, Anne. This is going to be the final question from the floor before passing it back to Harley. We have a question from Bernard Isaiah. And the question is, how do you think non-STEM subjects, social sciences, the arts, literature, and people who do it can contribute to space exploration? And if they can contribute, is there a program to allow them to do that?
Okay, I answer that. I think how non-science people who interested in science can contribute to science, like exploration. I think because we understand that space is for everyone. In any ways, you can relate it back to space. Take an example. If you are a writer, you can write something about space. You can inspire people to go and further study in space. If you are an artist, you like to draw, you can draw something that mesmerizing people and inspiring people about space as well. If you like to cook, maybe you can cook something that related to space, because at the end of the day, people likes to eat, just name it, for a space theme, and maybe that can relate people something to space, right? We have space food and others as well. So a lot of things can be done that can inspire people. I mean, space is just a theme. You can cook or you can make it anyways. How do you want it? Maybe if you like to cook and then you have a restaurant, you can craft or decorate your restaurant with space theme, right? Yeah, a lot of things you can do with that. You can explore more, and I believe if you have a passion in space, no matter where you are and from where you come from, you can relate it back to space, because heaven and earth together, they must be together, they can't be separated. So it's how we look at space. Yeah. All right, anyone want to share? And I know you have a lot of things about the culture
So for
part.
non-arts community, as again, I think largely the space industry had always been about STEM, which is not STEAM. And now the global campaign is of course STEAM. And that's why we have to include all the arts and this
Yes.
But it's tough. Why? Because if you, first of all, if you don't have a space industry existing, then you can only have this sort of experience with international companies, and sometimes international companies limits to local hires, or so it's like pursuing your hobby, but then if it depends, do you want it to be your career or is it just a hobby? For the time being now, let's say some of our initiatives is not even a priority for Indonesia. So that's difficult, you know, like people who are passionate about food, and we're trying to introduce what space food is. So the big homework is to bridge between space food experts, international space food experts, and the local food enthusiasts. And once the connection is built, and then they learn more about what space food is, then it's still a while until it can become a project and it can become a commercial business, you see. But I think it's inclusive for all. Now you just need to, what is your main passion, whether you find the right community, and from there on, even graphic designers, you know, it's crucial to visualize the moon simulation, the Mars simulation. That's the daily activities of any mission that is in the industry. They need renderings. So there's a lot of opportunities, but to specific programs, you have to look up the international organizations at the moment that probably have informal courses that you can enroll, but I am not sure whether it's accredited or not formally as an institution.
Do I need to say? Well, they've been pretty comprehensive, right, Hafez and Ann? So I think I'll just be saying more of the same.
Yeah.
I think talking about non-science, I just want to add something, because recently we have a conference about space, decolonization about space, because we understand everything when we talk about space coming from a Western country or those who are advanced country. So decolonization of space, we need to understand that because we are in the same region right now. I mean, all of us, I mean, here we have our own story about space, about sky exactly, right? So how we connect all the cultures, all the stories that related to moon, sun, stars to our culture, and make sure the generation learn about that. And I believe then they will understand, wow, we have something that relate ourselves with space. Because now what we see is they are depending from stories and news from other advanced countries. But to instill that we can do as well, we need to understand that we have all those stories, we have all those capabilities. So the story from our culture can, I think, can encourage people to understand that we can do the same thing, how they others as well. So what you need to do is share more our stories, share the culture that we have that relate to space. If I can say that the easiest thing in Malaysia, I think in Singapore and Indonesia, we have the same understanding about our Milky Way galaxy. Right? In Malaysia, we know as Bima Sakti. So that's the same story that we share, right? So how it been named Bima Sakti. So maybe our generation doesn't know about it. So we can relate it back to the culture. And from there, it will be snowballing, and we try to connect everything, and I believe it will create interest, and we can go everywhere.
I think that's about as comprehensive as we're going to get for this question. Thank you all. Harley, back to you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, thank you so much for those questions. Just the last add in to the last question about creativity. So I think based on the questions from the floor, I get it that a lot are interested on opportunities from the creative side of things. And in that regard, I just want to say that for those who are interested to look for opportunities or a community in particular about creatives in space, we're actually cooking up something, and we're cooking this up in partnership with something in Mexico. So we're planning an event in the Philippines and Mexico, and a community to focus exactly on this particular concept of creatives in space. So if you want to participate or know more about this initiative, I'll just put my email in the chat box, and you can reach out to me, and we can onboard you on what exactly are we doing, what are we gonna do, what are the concepts behind it. Yeah, so it's all about artists in space, because this one is like inspired by a story of a tailor in some. So there's a story about a tailor who was living near a NASA base center, and she was just tailoring for other people, and then eventually she got a contract to be a tailor for the astronauts' suits. And that's like a really inspiring story, because even for me, my mom is a tailor, and I love making my own clothes. I love designing my own clothes, particularly because clothes for men are very expensive. And so there's that, apparently a tailor can have a career in space. There's that kind of story. So yeah, if you want to know more about this kinds of opportunities, let me know. So I think that's it for today. I know there's a lot of points about space education that the audience would like to ask more, but time doesn't allow us to go through all of them. So yeah, I do hope that you guys enjoyed with the discussion, with the panel discussion. You learned something. Stay in touch, like our Facebook, social media pages to get more updated about other installations of this webinar series. There's a lot in store for you. And yeah, see you again in the next webinar series. Should we take a photo with the audience?
Sure.
Yeah, if the audience would like to have that. Faith, should you?
Let's take a team photo first with the SpiSEA team, then one with the audience.
All right, cool.
Okay, should we, Jillian, your camera is not on. Okay, shall we do some movements and made it like a GIF? It's like kind of a hip thing these days, yeah. Okay, 1, 2, 3, let's just make movements. Okay, and the audience, can you turn on your camera as well? Okay.
Are we doing a GIF again?
Yeah, I guess it's the largest Southeast Asian space GIF.
Okay, cool.
Okay. Is everybody ready? Okay, let's go. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thank you everyone. Our next session is in August, and it will be on space career opportunities, so look out for that. And if you have any more questions for the speakers after this, you feel free to message us. I'm just dropping all our contacts in the chat right now. And shout out to the Philippine Space Agency, the NPOCs for Indonesia and Thailand, and Daniel from the webinar team for your support. Yeah, thank you everyone, and we hope to see you again soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you everyone. Goodbye.